Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so glad that we have a good turnout tonight. I've got a few housekeeping things that I want to mention with respect to the format, but most importantly, I want to welcome you because tonight is about democracy. It's about being an aware and informed voter, making a decision that's thoughtful and full of facts and perspectives that you've gained through your research. So that's why we're all here. I'm also very delighted that we have all 5 of the registered candidates who will be on the ballot on June 12th here participating tonight. And before we start, I think each one of them deserves our thanks for being a candidate, for seeking public office, for wanting to serve our community, to serve the people who live in the City of London, and particularly in London West, in Queen's Park in Toronto, putting their name on the ballot, putting their shoes on and their shoe leather to work, pounding on streets around our neighborhood, talking, listening, and most of all, bringing forward challenging ideas and challenging our assumptions and thoughts about what London, what Ontario could and should be in the future. So why don't we start the night by just giving them a round of applause and thanking them for participating. So the format for tonight, before I introduce them to you, is this. Each candidate is going to have 5 minutes to present themselves, their perspective, their party's main platform, the main thrust. After they've all had their 5 minutes, then we'll go to a round of questions. They'll have 2 minutes to respond to those questions. Now, there was a box coming in, and there's some people, I think, who will, if you have a question, we want you to write the question down. That's the only way we're doing questions tonight. So please write a question down. If you didn't get a slip of paper to write your question down, we will make it available. Jane is at the back. Just stick your hand up. We're not taking an offering, okay? Relax. Okay? Jane, if someone wants to have a question, stick your hand up. They'll get you a slip of paper. And then there'll be questions that you want to ask to all of the candidates. For example, I'd like to know your party's position on X. We will allow each of the 5 candidates to respond to those to a maximum of 2 minutes. Once we've exhausted those questions, then there may be questions that are particular. I want to know the Green Party or the Freedom Party's perspective on Y. Then we'll go to them, okay? We're sorting the questions into those groups so that it's a little efficient. We'll try and keep the evening moving as quickly as possible so that we can get as much information, as many questions answered as possible. So that's the format. Jane, I think there's someone looking for Jane? I think there's someone looking for a slip of paper over here, and we'll go from there. So the candidates are on your far left, my far right, Jeff Bennett, representing the Progressive Conservative Party. Next to him, Keith McAllister, representing the Green Party. Al Gretzky with the Freedom Party. Nick Steinberg with the Liberal Party. And Peggy Sadler with the New Democratic Party. In an uncertified vote of drawing numbers from a basket, we have selected an order, and the first candidate up for his 5 minutes is Jeff Bennett from the Progressive Conservative Party. Jeff?
Can I use this?
You may.
All right. They told me I could use the move around mic, so we'll give it a shot. Makes me feel important. He said we could introduce the party's platform, but before that, I want to introduce a little bit about myself and how I come to be here, because I think it ties in well. 4 weeks ago, I didn't know I'd be doing this. I'm not a politician, at least I don't consider myself one, so what am I doing up here? I'm not quite sure. I'm an investment advisor. I've been working in investments since 1998. I work for Scotia McLeod. I'm a dad. My kids are 9 and 7. I'm a husband. My wife Toby is at the soccer fields right now with my kids. And I started out trying to build a business in the investment advisory world, and that can be very difficult to do. So 10 years ago, I started introducing myself to folks around London and trying to meet as many people as possible. And as you do that, you learn a number of things. And one of those people I met was a guy named Ed Holder, and Ed suggested to me 10 years ago, you should try and get involved in as many things in the community as you can. So I did. I went out and I joined a number of charitable boards and business organizations and did a number of things that he had suggested to me. And you meet a lot more people. And I met a lot more clients, and I met a lot more people. And as you get involved and talk with more people, you realize there's a large amount of frustration out there. And my frustration level was getting high too. I'm constantly complaining about the state of affairs. I'm out knocking on hundreds of doors a day now, and I'm getting the frustration from all of you folks also. And I'm just like you. I wasn't a guy who 4 weeks ago thought I'd be doing this. I was a guy who was just frustrated with the way government was running, and not just provincially. We could use some work municipally and federally sometimes too. But provincially, I started looking at things, and the investment advisor in me looked at the budget of the province of Ontario, and it would be the equivalent of a family of four coming to see me and saying, Jeff, we make $120,000 a year, but we consistently spend $130,000 a year, and we have $310,000 on our credit card. Do you think this is a problem? And if that individual came into my office, I would say, we have got such a problem. I don't even know where to begin. Essentially, I'd be saying, you need to be talking to a trustee in bankruptcy. An investment advisor can't help you at this point. And that's the reality. That's where the province of Ontario sits right now. And that scares me. My kids are 9 and 7, and I don't want it to look like Flint, Michigan, or Detroit around here when my kids enter the workforce in 10 years' time. And I fear that that's the path we're on. I feel government has a very important role to play in so many areas like health and education. My wife works in healthcare. My in-laws are retired teachers. My dad was an OPP officer. I'm in touch with all those different elements of society, and I hear it from all the hundreds and thousands of people that I've met through the community. I'm aware of the issues, but if we can't get our finances in order, we are all in a whole heap of trouble, and that's the part that scares me. Folks in Detroit never thought that their city was going to go the direction it did either, and we need to take steps now to get the province back on firm financial footing, and that's why I decided to do this. It came up at the very last minute. I feel fortunate to be here because, as I said 4 weeks ago, I didn't know I would be. It was the PC party needed a candidate in London West, and they went to my old friend Ed Holder and said, we need somebody that you would support. Ed gave them my name. They came to me a few days prior to the election and suggested this. I guess they'd already done their background check, and I came out okay. And at first I thought, you're crazy. There's no way I can do this. My wife will kill me. But I went home that night, and my wife said, no, you've been pretty passionate about this for a long time, and I think you would enjoy it. Let's go for it. And then I said, there's no way Scotia will allow it. But I went in to see my boss the next day at Scotia McLeod, and he said, give me an hour to talk to HR, and we'll get back to you. And he came back and said, no, we support you. Let's go out and do this. Because I think a lot of the guys in my office fear that the province is going in the wrong direction too. So I got the okay from everybody, and now here I be. And that's my story, and now I go out and I knock on hundreds of doors a day, and I tell that story to others, because I want you to realize the urgency in this too. We could end up like Detroit, Michigan, if we don't get our act together. And I want there to be money for teachers and nurses and healthcare and all those important things that government is responsible for. And I want it to be there for my kids. But if we don't get the financial house in order, none of that is going to be so. And that's why we need to have a plan right now, and Tim Hudak's is the only plan that's going to get us going in the right direction. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Nick Steinberg from the Liberal Party of...
I'm going to try this one, see how it goes. So thanks everybody for being here. Thanks Oakridge Presbyterian for putting this on. This is a really amazing opportunity for people to get engaged, and I'm really glad that we were all able to be here. I'm Nick Steinberg. I'm running for the Liberals in London West. London West is really important to me because my earliest memories were formed here. I grew up in Old South. I went to Tecumseh Public School. And I've been in London for quite a while. I went to Central Secondary School, and then I went on to Western and did a degree in psychology. I did a degree in psychology because I have a real passion for helping people one-on-one. I had the opportunity to work for Chris Bentley in his constituency office, where I got to explore that passion. And I got to explore politics a little bit too. It was really exciting. I got to help a lot of London West residents navigate an often daunting system, and I really enjoyed that. And now I work in a great not-for-profit employment agency as an employment specialist. Basically a fancy name for someone who works with people who are looking for work, trying to help them get out there, get their name out there, get a resume built, and talk to employers. And I also go and talk to employers one-on-one, showing them the benefits of hiring my clients, of hiring clients from the agency where I work. It's given me a real perspective on the challenges that people are facing in a wide number of sectors, because I work with clients with all different kinds of skills, all different kinds of backgrounds, and all different kinds of challenges as well. Which brings me to why I'm a liberal. I'm a liberal because I believe that everyone should have the same opportunity to work hard and succeed. The Liberal Party, to me, is about providing a helping hand. It's not about handouts. It's not about leaving people behind. It's about giving people the opportunity to help themselves succeed. I believe that fundamentally, government should be a force for good in people's lives. And I think that politics can be really positive, and for the last little while, it hasn't been. People are getting tired of politics because of the negativity. So they gave me 5 minutes to come up here and talk about whatever I wanted, so I want to talk about some positive things for a little while, and unfortunately for you, you just have to sit here and listen. I want to talk about some success stories that our government has had since we came into power in 2003. We started monitoring wait times. Before 2003, we weren't watching wait times. We weren't tracking them. We didn't know how bad it was. We just knew it was pretty bad. So we started monitoring wait times, and since then, we've brought Ontario from the very worst wait times in the country to the very best. We have the shortest wait times in Canada. Despite the recession between 2008 and 2010, we were able to lift 47,000 children out of poverty. We have a school nutrition program that feeds 720,000 school children, so they don't have to worry about being hungry in class. High school graduation rates, when we came into power in 2003, were 68%. They're now 83%. We're funding 13,000 more teachers, and we've dramatically reduced class sizes. We've also increased post-secondary funding by 80%. So those kids who graduate from high school are able to go on to top-class universities right here in the province. We've also closed every coal plant in the province, which has led to $4.4 billion in healthcare savings every year. We don't have smog days in London anymore. I'm proud of all those things, and I know that there's still a lot to do, but I'm excited to be a part of getting that work done. I'm excited about helping to bring jobs back to London. I'm excited about bringing high-speed rail to southwestern Ontario, getting from London to Toronto in 40 minutes. It'll totally change the landscape of southwestern Ontario and the province. I'm excited about raises for frontline workers. I appreciate Kathleen Wynn's collaborative approach, and I'm excited to be a part of that approach going forward. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Nick. Keith McAllister, Green Party.
Hi, I am Keith McAllister, and thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Oakridge, for hosting us. Thank you for caring about our democracy. Tonight, you will find out what I don't know and you'll see by the brevity of most of my answers that I am not overly fond of the sound of my own voice. You will come to know that I am not a professional politician nor a wannabe politico. I am your neighbor. I work for a living. If we share attitudes, then thank you for overcoming your anger and puzzlement about the choices offered in this wretched election. If we share attitudes, then listen to what I call the anger management briefing. Maybe the Woodstock woman written up in this morning's Free Press typifies your views. She said, I can't vote for the Tories, I can't vote for the Liberals, I won't vote NDP, and we can't afford the Green Party. Well, yes, you can. We are the only party you can afford, because to be green means we will maintain and then shrink the budget envelope. It means we'll eliminate the debt and the interest on the debt over a 3-year horizon. We will reallocate the money within that budget envelope. We will do more with less because we won't be wasting, misspending, and boondoggling. I will learn, and my party will change its mind from time to time, but we will not waste money flip-flopping to chase your votes. How will we contain the budget envelope? By generating wealth in this province. Large payroll tax cuts for small business. Small increases to large corporate tax. We'll cut out the anachronistic duplication of 2 publicly funded school boards to save $1.6 billion. We will edge up the mineral extraction royalties from extracting minerals in Northern Ontario. We are now at the national low of 1.1% for royalties on these minerals, and we're just behind Saskatchewan, leading the country for the value of those minerals we extract. Saskatchewan is at 9.8% royalty. Couldn't we edge ours up a little? We could manage that budget envelope by redirecting all of this money to where we need it. We could fix transportation gridlock, and that would unleash business entrepreneurialism. We could support locally directed health care, make sure that the long-promised money for long-term care gets spent. In the last 2 years, $45 million of the $1.1 million promised has been spent. Not much. Do you know that 55 to 60% of the energy that is released by the burning of fossil fuels to generate electricity literally goes up the chimney? That's waste. We'll tell it like it is with energy conservation. Did you know that nuclear power plants aren't much better? They're about, on a cost basis now, about 38% efficient. So let's not plan renovations to Darlington and Bruce, which will cost over $10 billion. Let's use that money to buy about $6 billion worth from Hydro-Quebec, put the $4 billion in change into other conservation efforts, such as the Home Improvement Fund, which will also stimulate our economy. Now, we can think placidly about anger management. I know that my fellow candidates are sincere, well-intentioned, and good people. We could like any one of them. They too are your neighbors. But they are shackled to party ideologies and performance baggage from when each of them had a turn governing. And they did that governing without the consent of the majority of Ontarians. If you vote Green this election, should be the last one where a minority of the popular vote picks the government. For example, with 5 candidates on the platform, the winner is the guy with 21% of the vote. The winner who you elect will have 79% of the people not wanting him. There's a simple electoral reform policy, which is called RAT, actually. It's, it sounds like a funny acronym. It stipulates that the winner has to have 50% of the vote, and you rank your vote, and there's an automatic recount after every ballot is done. 50% is the winner, however. So go to the gpo.ca website, drill down on our platform, and you'll see that we have ideas without rhetoric. You'll see that the Greens are not radical environmental extremists. You will see that we are in favor of lower taxes, small government, and small business. We are community-oriented, and your prudent, straight-talking neighbors. And when you do that, I think you'll know how to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Al Gretzky, Freedom Party.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out this evening to be better informed in this election. Marilyn and I have been married 55 years. We have 2 children, and we have 4 grandchildren. And it is for those 4 grandchildren that I am in this, to make sure they have an Ontario the same as I knew, if not even better than what I knew. There was a time when Ontario was the engine that drove Canada. It was its backbone. Currently, we have been reduced to a province with its hand out to receive federal payments just to stay alive. What happened? Well, the answer is simple. It's called big government. It has injected itself into every facet of our lives, and it is attempting to be the parent who knows best. And as the economy sinks deeper and debt and chaos grow, the government's only response is the only one it knows: impose restrictions and raise taxes because they are married to your money. British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher said it best when she said, "The problem with socialism is it's okay until it eventually runs out of other people's money." Now, regardless of which of the progressive parties you happen to be supporting, Ontario is headed for even more debt spending. Just listen to what they say in this election. Each is promising to get out of the debt hole by, are you ready for this? Spending more. Somehow they are convinced that going down that same old road, eventually it's going to work out. That is the definition of insanity, when you do the same thing over and over the same way and expect a different result. They have been spending and wasting your money for so long, the words cut and save aren't even in their vocabulary anymore. Now compare that to the Freedom Party. We will not only stop the digging, we will start filling that hole with prosperity. How? Well, a good beginning would be putting an end to that Green Energy Act. That would insert billions of dollars into the province, and it will make hydro more affordable. And that affordable hydro, it'll bring back business. That'll bring back jobs. That'll bring money in your pocket, which you can spend to move the economy forward. Now, Freedom Party will bring you choice in health care. I said choice, not privatization. You see, before 1969, we did have choice. And then a conservative government came along and said, I got a great idea. Let's create a monopoly called OHIP, and we'll bring in, say, provincial income tax to pay for it, and then we'll start rationing health care for everybody. Now, we'll also get back to choice in education. Not privatization, choice, where parents can once again have a say in what their children learn, how they learn it, and the activities that they participate in. Those choices will help us to lower taxes and, more importantly, bring us a smaller, smarter, more trustworthy government. Tell the politicians at Queen's Park that you're sick and tired of the graft, corruption, and the self-promotion, that you want accountability and honesty and trust to be used to run the government. Tell them that the status quo has got to go, and do that by electing a Freedom Party candidate. That single act of electing a Freedom Party candidate will let them know that you are serious about looking for a new leader, and they're not it. London West, you can demonstrate to all the ridings what needs to be done to move Ontario from a have-not province with a government that's out of control in spending to a have province where you have a government that lives within its means, and you, the people, you get to keep the money you earn so that you spend it your way. Now, if that sounds good to you, I ask you to vote for Al Gretzky on June the 12th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al. And finally, Peggy Sadler, New Democratic Party.
Good evening. I'm Peggy Sattler, and I'm delighted to be here tonight, although it's perhaps somewhat sooner than I thought I would be back after last summer. But over the past 9 months, I've had the privilege of serving as your voice, as your MPP for London West at Queen's Park. Prior to my election last summer, I had served for 13 years as a public school board trustee and a school board chair, beginning in 2000 when my kids were just entering the school system. I'm a graduate of both Western University and Fanshawe College and have lived in London for close to 20 years with my husband Neil and our 2 children. John is in university, and Emily, I am proud to say, will be graduating from Banting in June. In my professional life as a researcher at a London West small business, I spent the last decade working with local organizations on a wide variety of community projects, from childhood injury prevention to encouraging employers to hire people with disabilities. The main focus of my work has been post-secondary education, as well as broader issues around skills and jobs in a changing economy. My research background has shaped the way I have approached my role as your MPP. I have actively reached out to hundreds of people representing many different organizations across London West to learn about their priorities and to hear their perspectives on the challenges and opportunities facing this community. I have worked in a nonpartisan way at Queen's Park to make sure that legislative initiatives are evidence-based. This approach has been noted. I was honored to be acknowledged by other MPPs as one of the least partisan members of the legislature. I don't heckle, I don't hoot, I treat the legislature as a place for serious discussion and debate. And if anyone has ever watched Question Period on TV, this is not an easy thing to do. What I also do is work with my staff and local agencies to help people in London West who are having problems accessing government programs and services. In addition, I have moved to make legislative changes that are important for London West. My research experience informed the private members bill I introduced this March, which was designed to better connect post-secondary students with employers to help them get jobs after they graduate. The bill was developed in consultation with local students and community groups. It was endorsed by both local and provincial organizations and supported by all 3 parties during second reading debate. If I'm re-elected as your MPP, I am committed to working with the city to make London an exciting, exceptional, and connected place, as described by Rethink London, with good jobs, vibrant neighborhoods, and a diverse economy that attracts and retains talent. The right kind of provincial support will enable London to renew its manufacturing base, support young entrepreneurs, and grow emerging industries. It will leverage the world-class research capacity of Western and Fanshawe and make London a model sustainable city with abundant green space, accessible local food, and efficient public transit. Most of all, it will provide opportunities for young people to start their careers, for families to raise their kids, and for seniors to live with dignity. I want to be the voice for these local priorities at Queen's Park. Knocking on doors these past few weeks, many of you have told me that it's time for a change. After 11 years of Liberal government, there's been too much mismanagement, too many taxpayer dollars wasted. On the other hand, many of you are worried about the changes that Tim Hudak is proposing. His plan to lay off 100,000 people just doesn't make sense, not to you and not to the economists who have studied the plan. People want a government that will respect their tax dollars and invest in real priorities like creating jobs, protecting health care, and making life more affordable. This election, London West voters can choose the NDP and leadership that focuses on the things that matter to them. I would be honored to continue as your MPP.
Okay, thank you very much. We've finished the first round. Thank you, candidates. As we move into the question round, I'm going to ask that you not applaud in between everyone, just so that we can kind of keep it moving. So now I need just a moment of patience, and do you have just sort of is it a mixed bag? Okay. I'll figure it out. Just let me have the box, and let me just take the box, and I'll pull. So, candidates, I'm going to give you a mobile mic, and we'll pass it amongst ourselves if you don't mind. And we're going to randomly, we're not going to go in the same order every time, so we'll vary that. The question is this: will you invest more in health promotion? And I think I'm going to put and how onto that. Nick, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Al, then we'll go to Peggy, and then we'll switch over to this side. Okay, so the question is, will you invest more in health promotion, and how?
Okay. So health promotion has definitely been a priority for the Liberal government, and it's something that means a lot to me as well. Always been an active guy, and I really like to stay healthy. So I think one of the big things actually that I alluded to in my opening was having the student nutrition program, the student breakfast program. 720,000 kids now not having to worry about being hungry during class. Obviously, that's a huge boost for their health, both physically and mentally. We've also had a number of other initiatives that have come into play. Certainly, after-school programs have been a big focus, and we'll continue that work in the future.
Thank you for the question. Well, as I said in my opening statement, when it comes to health care, the promotion of health care is basically going to be done the way we say. We'll go back to choice again. And the choice would be, you would be able to choose whatever the supplier of or the provider of the health care is that you want. It would not be a matter of you would simply have to go to the government and say, yes, I will take whatever it is that you are giving out. Because currently, what they're giving out is, as I mentioned, it's a rationing system, and it's getting smaller and smaller all of the time. The last thing that I read was cataracts are now being removed in Windsor. How far down the line do we have to go? We need to go back to what we had in the beginning, which, as I say, was choice in healthcare. And with that, it will move the system on the way that it should. Thank you.
There's lots of research to show that investments in frontline services, and particularly in health promotion, is one of the most effective uses of our healthcare dollar. I want to share with you an experience that I had on Friday. I visited the London Diabetes Foot Clinic. And at that clinic, people with diabetes can get ulcers treated, and they are given orthotic shoes, and sometimes orthotic devices that elevate the foot and allow the ulcer to heal. Those devices are not paid for by OHIP. Instead, if a diabetic person, if the ulcer continues to get worse and they end up having amputation, OHIP covers the cost of a prosthetic. And to me, given the incidence of diabetes among low-income people, among people who cannot afford a pair of quality orthotic shoes or orthotic supports, many will not go to this clinic to get those kinds of treatment. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. We need to be investing the dollars up front on good quality health promotion to avoid the very expensive hospitalization and surgical treatment after the fact.
Is this one working? It is, good. I think the question is about preventative medicine, and it would be dumb to say anything other than yes, of course we support that. How is the Green Party going to support it? It's going to support it through ensuring that we have a healthy food chain that is controlled locally. It's going to support it by ensuring that the people most affected by health decisions in our community are the guys who get to make the decisions in our community. We have allocated money to go forth and support and build healthy food for schools, healthy food for seniors, more healthcare clinics from a range of health practitioners. It's dumb to say anything other than yes to this question.
Yes. We will invest in health promotion. It is part of the PC platform. I've gone through it, and it's actually in there at millionjobsplan.com. You can go read for yourself. But when it comes to healthcare, the PC party has no plans to cut funding to healthcare whatsoever. What has become the problem over the last 10 years is we're spending money on too many areas of healthcare that aren't as important. We need to spend money on doctors and nurses. And there seems to be a misconception out there that the PC party wants to head down to the local hospital with a pile of pink slips for all these nurses, and that is so not true. What we want to do is hire more doctors, nurses, occupational therapists, that's what my wife is, physios, the frontline staff, the health promoters. When I go down to the emergency with my kids, it's happened a couple of times, my wife sometimes overreacts, you sit there for 10 hours before you can get in front of one of these professionals. And then the Liberals have gone out and hired office workers to point you in the direction of the right line or to take statistics or offer you some sort of satisfaction survey. I don't need a satisfaction survey, and I don't need you to point me to the right line. I need you to make the line shorter so I can talk with the healthcare professional who's going to help me. There's dollars there for that. We need to invest them properly, and that's not happening in healthcare today.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question should be fairly brief, and just so you know, I'm not editorializing in the least. I'd like to ask the candidates about their criminal record for each one of them. So I hope that's a yes or no answer, so I'm going to start with Peggy. None. Al?
I wish I had one that I could share with you and be that person that you would say.
Okay, that was yes or no. And Jeff. I thought so, but I didn't want to editorialize. So this is a little bit more thoughtful question that'll go a little further, I think. If elected, what would your party do to spur job creation, especially for students? And Jeff, we're going to start with you today.
I'm a little disappointed because all the talk is around Million Jobs Plan, and I'm getting some pushback on it on the doors. And I personally don't even believe that Mr. Hubert is in a position to go out and create 1 million jobs. I don't believe the government creates jobs. But in my years as an investment advisor, I've analyzed all sorts of businesses, and I've met lots of job creators in the City of London. We need to create a better atmosphere for job creation, and that's what our plan is all about. It's not about government creating those jobs. It's about eliminating red tape. I met a fellow last week. He's 34 years old. He's taking over his parents' company in Brantford. They are a high-tech manufacturing firm, and they employ over 120 people. And this kid's saying to me, look, I'm being wooed by Indiana and Tennessee. They're telling me to come down there because my hydro rates will be half what they are here. And for every one hoop that I'll have to jump through in Indiana, we've got a dozen of them here. That's a problem. This kid is Canadian, born and raised, wants to stay here, but he's thinking about taking his 120 jobs south of the border because we're making it too difficult for him to do business here. We don't need to go from 12 hoops to 0 hoops. You need some regulations. But the last 11 years, we have gone so far overboard, we are making it difficult for job creators in Ontario to exist, to thrive, and that's why there's no jobs available out there. And we need to change that, bringing electricity rates down, cutting the bureaucracy, and lowering taxes, not on the big corporations and not providing corporate welfare or handouts across the board so the little guy can hire people too.
I think there's two questions. One is how to create jobs for students. Our platform is freeze tuitions temporarily. Our platform is give more tax credits for education. And our platform is to support the opening up of more apprenticeship programs in the community colleges. For others, the Green Party is the only party that says, let's double the threshold for employment health tax credits. Well, that means, since most of us work for small business, you take a small business which now has to chip in the employer's share of health tax with a payroll of $450,000, and we'll double it. That means the employer has money up front to spend. He doesn't have to wait 18 months for a tax credit. He has money today to hire you now.
Thank you. We'll go across to Peggy.
Thank you. The NDP has proposed a number of fiscal measures that are in use in other provinces that will be helpful to create jobs both for young people and also for others in the community. So we've proposed a job creation tax credit, and this is a tool that's in use in many U.S. states as well as the province of Manitoba, and that is a financial incentive for an employer. An employer creates a job, they get a tax credit afterwards, and so we think that would help provide an incentive to an employer to hire a young person. We are also proposing an emerging industries fund that would be available to support jobs in the cultural industries and also the ICT sector, or in London there's a thriving digital gaming sector. Many young people are attracted to those kinds of jobs, creative industries and also digital industries. So having access to funding to grow those industries will be really important. The other thing is transit. Young people don't have cars these days. They really rely on public transit to get around. Our government is excited about the proposal that's come from the City of London to move forward with a BRT, and I will do everything I can to advocate on behalf of the city to get the funding to put that the bus rapid transit system in place. And finally, I talked earlier about my own bill on creating more workplace opportunities for college and university students while they are studying, because the research shows it gives young people a leg up when they go to enter the labor market after they graduate.
Okay, so obviously this is a big area for me. I work in employment. I'm helping people get jobs on a daily basis. So employment is huge. One of the things I'm really excited about is an expanded program. The old one was called the Southwestern Ontario Development Fund. The new one, much larger, the Jobs and Prosperity Fund. The Southwestern Ontario Development Fund helped bring a great company, Dr. Oetker, to the area. They've hired almost 100 people already. They're sourcing all of their ingredients and packaging locally. There's 300 spin-off jobs from that, and they're only looking to expand. It's also brought money to a great company in town here, Digital Extremes, fast-growing tech sector company. So that kind of funding that helps businesses invest will create the roots here and keep them around for a long time. I'm also very excited about bringing high-speed rail to London, from London to Kitchener-Waterloo and on to Toronto. London has this amazing burgeoning tech sector, and allowing us to get from London to the great tech sector in Kitchener-Waterloo in 20 minutes, linking those two hubs together would be huge for that. And on to Toronto in 40 minutes, it would be a game changer for sure. On the youth side specifically, we have a youth employment strategy, which includes a program that I've actually personally seen the great benefits from. It is the Youth Employment Fund. It's already helped employ 11,000 young people, and with targets to employ 30,000 young people overall. It's a great program, and it really does encourage employers to hire young people, and it's already seen a lot of success so far, so I'm looking forward to a continuation of that.
Now, this is something we're going to hear from virtually every Freedom Party candidate, and you're going to get tired of hearing it, but you're going to be glad that you hear it. The first thing you have to do to get all of these jobs, whether it's students, whether it's seniors, whether it's anyone else, you have to balance the budget. You have to lower that deficit and that debt. Once you get that under control, then you can start looking at these other programs. The next thing you have to do is you have to get in and you have to end that green energy nonsense with the wind turbines and the solar and the obscene amounts of money that are being paid to those individuals. Now, once you do that, then you have businesses coming back to Ontario. You will have all the jobs you want. You won't have to look at a specific job for students or for anyone else. They'll be there for everyone. Thank you.
Much. The next question. The next question is a little longer. So when Mike Harris was in office, he froze the disability and cut the welfare rates. Because of this, disability rates is 13% below the poverty line, and welfare is 20% below the poverty line. I would like each candidate to tell me how you're going to get them, those people that are on those things, to the poverty line. And with this question, we'll start with Peggy Sadler, followed by Al Gretzky, and then Nick, and then over to Jeff and Keith.
Yes, thank you very much. In the 2012 budget, which was the first budget under a minority government, when the NDP actually had some negotiating power to press the government to make some changes in the budget that we thought were important, we pushed for an increase in ODSP benefits. And it was because of the NDP putting that on the table that increase moved forward in the 2012 budget. In our platform for this election, we have proposed a 1% increase for both Ontario ODSP, the Disability Support Program, as well as Ontario Works. We've also proposed a minimum wage increase to $12 an hour. It's not enough to raise people, minimum wage earners, over the poverty line, but it does move them forward significantly. We've also committed to indexing that increase to inflation so that they don't fall further and further behind as the cost of living goes forward. We have committed to a number of other measures around housing to ensure better housing stock, more affordable housing for people in poverty, and benefits, dental benefits for low-income children, school nutrition programs, and other supports.
Thank you. Now, as to the question of raising rates, I will honestly tell you that as a party, what we are looking at saying, we are not going to change status quo. And the reason that we are doing that is because to us, the most important thing going, and as I said to you earlier, you are going to get sick of hearing this, but to us, the most important thing going is to get Ontario back on its feet so that we can help these people out. Because there is no money left to give them, because we are simply robbing Peter to pay Paul is what we are doing. And we have to stop that. Do we want to help all these individuals? Of course we do. But we don't want to do it at the expense of everybody else, which is exactly what is happening now. It's as much as saying, simply go to your neighbor, and if they won't give you what they want, just take it. Why have the government come in and be the middleman for that? Just go over there and do it yourself. No. What we need is a strong, vibrant economy, and all of this will be taken care of. We don't have to worry about it. Thank you.
This is a really neat topic for me because I was working in Chris Bentley's constituency office when we were undergoing a social assistance review. And one of the things that came out of the social assistance review was allowing people who are on social assistance to keep more of the money that they earn when they start to work. So I got to be part of seeing that social assistance review be done. I then started working in employment services. A lot of the people that I'm seeing on a daily basis are accessing social assistance, be it ODSP or Ontario Works temporarily. And so I've been able to see the impact that allowing people to keep the first $200 of their income that they earn and having a reduced clawback rate after that has made on those people's lives. It allows people who can work to help pull themselves out of poverty. It's a great initiative, and I'm looking forward to more initiatives that have come through as a result of the social assistance review. As a government, since 2003, we've increased social assistance rates cumulatively by 16%. We have a 1% increase for ODSP recipients in the budget. We have a 1% increase for Ontario Works recipients in the budget, as well as an additional 1% for singles living on Ontario Works because they don't have the additional support that comes with having a family. So those are some of the things that we've already done and things that we will continue to do, and I'm excited to be a part of that.
I think there was a bit about Mike Harrison there, which is probably a dig towards me. I was in university when Mike Harris was in power, and Mike Harris was put in a position where he had to make some difficult decisions in this province, some very difficult decisions, and not all of those are enjoyable. He was forced to make those decisions because of things that happened in the Bob Rae and David Peterson days, and the spending got completely out of control, and we are there again now. My wife used to work at London Psych. She worked for a number of years at Parkwood Hospital with people with disabilities, and now she works with children with disabilities at Thames Valley Children's Center. I come face to face with this all the time. I sit on the board at Child Reach, and I've done a number of work activities in these areas. I'm sympathetic. The problem right now is we are spending so much money over here on windmills and bullet trains and everything else, and we don't have the money. There are areas where government plays a very important role, and people with disabilities need help, and we should be in a position to provide it. But right now we're not, because we're wasting so much money in these areas over here, and that's the part that has to stop. We have to cut the spending. We have to get the books back on firm footing so we can focus on the things that are really important. And this is one that falls into that category. But right now, even the others here, the Liberals and the NDP, keep on saying, well, we'll give you a 1% increase or a tax incentive or something. Those things don't work. Get us back on firm financial footing and then tackle things head on.
My friends know that I'm here kind of hoping that all the questions are easy or that perhaps I don't have to answer them. But I know this one, so I really want to tell you. The Green Party believes in the guaranteed annual income supplement because it's cheaper than all the other systems of support we have in place today. Thanks.
Thank you, candidates. The next question is this, and you can handle it however way you choose. Do you believe in fair and open collective bargaining? And perhaps I could just add, and what would be the implication under your government for that? So the question is, do you believe in fair and open collective bargaining? And we're going to start with the Green Party, with Keith, and followed by Nick, and then Al, and then Peggy, and finally Jeff.
Also, the king of brevity, yes, I personally do. No, I don't know what the Green Party's position on it is. However, we are not in favor of political parties and labor associations, of unions and labor associations supporting political parties.
So absolutely we support collective bargaining. Obviously there have been challenges, there's no question. That in the past few years there have been some challenges to overcome. But Kathleen has taken a very collaborative approach, and I'm really encouraged by the new direction that she's taken and the Minister of Education has taken. And I look forward to a more collaborative approach with unions going forward.
Thank you for the question. Let's begin by taking what Paul suggested. We can go anywhere we want with this, so I will. Why is it that we hear so much about bashing unions? That's nonsense. Unions are really not the problem. The problem really are the people who hand the money out, and in this case, it's the government. Let's look at it this way. If your boss came to you and said, I'm going to give you 10 times more than you're worth just so you won't bother me anymore, are you going to say, no, I'm not worth it? Of course you're going to take that. Well, that's what the unions do, nothing more. Their job is to look after their union members. That's all. That's all they do. So when the people who are writing the checks come to them and say, listen, to keep you silent so I don't have to deal with you anymore, I'm going to give you X number of dollars if you sign on the dotted line. They're going to sign on the dotted line. So it is not about union bashing. It's not about that. It's about the people who actually sign the checks. That's where your problem is. The problem is not the union. The problem are the people who will not stand up and say, this is it. This is as much as it gets, and that's all you're going to get. Thank you.
Yes, I witnessed myself the importance of fair and open collective bargaining in the education sector when the Liberal government under Kathleen Wynne introduced Bill 115, which was an effort to remove collective bargaining rights from school boards and teacher unions and to try to deal with some fiscal challenges. And what ended up happening was chaos in the education sector. Kids were without extracurriculars. It was very difficult for school boards to deliver programs, and teachers felt completely disrespected by the government. It was not good for morale. It was not good for kids. It was not good for families. And it was a big part of my motivation for deciding to run as a candidate in the by-election last year. There's lots of examples throughout the country and in the province of collective agreements that are reached with 0 and 1 or 0 and 0. So it is possible in a tight fiscal climate to negotiate agreements that serve the public interest and also respect worker rights. We have to have respectful conversations at the bargaining table to deal with some of these challenges. We can't get there by ripping up contracts, creating chaos, and potentially opening up the province to all kinds of legal challenges, which will end up costing more money.
In history, the collective bargaining process has served this country very well, and unions have also. And they've definitely had a crucial role to play in the building of this country. But most government programs start off with good intentions, and then they grow and they grow to the point where it's out of control. And I fear that we've hit that point long ago, really, in the collective bargaining process, in the arbitration process. My father was an OPP officer. I know so many police officers and firefighters, and like I said, my in-laws are teachers, and I sympathize. But even the police officers I talk to say we don't necessarily need a raise every year. And they would be willing to take a freeze for 5 years, but they're not even allowed to, because it has gotten to the point where this arbitration process, it's so out of control, we can't even stop it. It's this huge ball that's rolling downhill, and the NDP and the Liberals just keep on saying, I look forward to the process of negotiation. Of course they do, because there's ads running on television right now that are being paid for by the unions and the people doing the collective bargaining that are supporting the Liberals and the NDP. And there's good people involved in all of these areas, but it's out of control. And we need a government that's prepared to not say, that's it, we're cutting the whole thing, but to sit down and be realistic and say we don't have the money, we have to make some difficult choices. We need to take a stand here. And I feel like the PC party is the only party that's prepared to do that.
Thank you, candidates. The next question is as follows. The current green energy program is purchasing electric power on 20-year contracts with providers of solar and wind turbines. These contracts are being paid far more than the prices charged per kilowatt hour. Obviously, the deficit difference for these contracts will be paid by we, the public. How much deficit is building, and what will you do about it? And this time we'll start with Al Gretzky, followed by Peggy, and then Keith, and then Jeff and Nick.
Thank you for the question. Here in my hand is a decision by the Ontario Appeals Court, which basically states that anyone entering into an agreement or contract with the government does so at their own risk. For those who want to look it up, it's the case is known as Trillium versus Ontario. And basically what it's saying is that when a contract is completely out of whack, the way that the current ones are, the government has a right to change them, if so. That occurred last November. Give me a show of hands of anyone who heard of that decision besides those people of us who are in the game. Not many. My question would be, why? Why is the government not standing up there and saying, hey, this is an opportunity for us to save our citizens money? This is an opportunity to save taxpayers money by cutting down the costs on turbines and solar. And they're not. And what you have to ask yourself is, why are they not doing that? And what would we do? We'd apply that the instant we got there. It's that simple. Thank you.
This is a big problem. We've calculated the cost of the subsidy that Ontario taxpayers are paying to export surplus power to the U.S. is about $1 billion, and people, residents, are carrying the freight for that. So we have committed to ending that $1 billion subsidy to export surplus power at reduced costs, and moving to a system of direct trading, so that we are no longer subsidizing that export. I do have to say that this is not just from green power projects, but it is symptomatic of the fact that all of these private power deals were signed with huge conglomerates, and they were guaranteed prices, and the market doesn't support that. And we would end private power deals. We think that that's not in the public interest. There is a good reason to have small-scale renewable energy projects in communities when there's community benefit and community input in the location of those projects. But we can't continue to subsidize private sector firms who are making a profit on the backs of Ontarians. I also wanted to say that, anyway, this is an issue that I hear about a lot in the constituency office. People in this community are had it with the high hydro bills.
The Green Party does not support subsidization of renewable energy systems for creating energy. Obviously, this doesn't make sense. But did you know that your government has for many, many years supported all forms of energy creation? The hydro bill you pay today is subsidized. It's very high to you, but it's still subsidized. We're not paying the real price of creating energy. Now think about a store that today has 200 winter sweaters for sale. You managed to sell 100 of them today, but you know what? Tomorrow we're cooked. You're not going to sell any more sweaters. What would you do? Some guy from overseas says, I'll take them off your hands for 25 cents. Done. And that's why we sell our excess energy to the States.
I'll use a clothing analogy too. I have a friend who produces T-shirts, and they're environmentally friendly T-shirts. And if we agree to buy them from him in bulk for the next 20 years, he'll sell them to us for $40 a T-shirt. But the good news is it'll always stay at 40, and then we can turn around and sell those T-shirts for $9, but maybe more. But it sounds like a good business plan, right? Let's all go in on this together. And if I propose that to anybody, we'd all agree in this room, this is insanity. This is the worst business plan I've ever seen. And it was brought up in the beginning because we as a province were trying to appear green as though we were doing something to make a difference. And we're not. And we're going broke in the process. And it has to stop immediately. People don't like it when we hand out corporate welfare. I don't either. We want to cut that. I don't want to see subsidies to big corporations. I don't want the government choosing which companies get handouts. But I don't want corporate welfare and subsidies going to solar and wind power generators either, just because they're masquerading as environmentally friendly. There are better ways to approach this. The province is going broke as a result of some of these deals that have been taken on in the last number of years. It has to stop immediately, and the PC party is prepared to end all those subsidies right away so we can get the province back on the right financial track.
Okay, so the question sort of turned into two things here. The first one is the green energy. Green energy now in Ontario employs 69,000 people. So if we completely eradicate the green energy system in Ontario, those 69,000 people, those 69,000 families, are going to be in a tough spot. Green energy has allowed us to close every coal plant in the province. That saves us $4.4 billion in healthcare costs every single year. We don't have smog days in London anymore. Has anyone noticed that? The other part of the question became sending power to the United States, sending power to Quebec. There's a fundamental fact about the power grid that gets left out when politicians throw around the idea of canceling the practice of exporting power. The power that we produce cannot be stored in the grid indefinitely. So if we don't have agreements with our neighbors to send that power away, the grid would literally shut down because the power can't just sit in the lines. It can't just sit there. It would explode. So yes, we have to find ways to make those agreements with our neighbors in terms of taking the power, but it's not always that we're sending it away at a loss. The other parties like to talk about it like it is, but a lot of the time we're selling it at a profit, and that tends to balance out. So that's what I'll say about that.
Thank you very much. The next question is as follows. What are you going to do to improve math scores? And let's focus on primary education, K to 8. And in terms of speaking order, I apologize. We're going to start with you, Nick, followed by Jeff, Al, Peggy, and Keith.
Certainly we're committed to continuing funding for education, especially in improving test scores. As I said in my opening, we have been the government that has invested the most in education in Ontario's history. Graduation rates from high school have gone from 68% up to 83%. And test scores are among the best in all the international ranking system for student performance. So we're definitely committed to that. We won't be cutting teaching positions. During our time in office, we've actually funded for 13,000 more teachers than were in the province in 2003. And we intend to continue on the role of providing quality education to our children. Thanks very much.
We're not planning to cut teaching positions either. And education is similar to healthcare for me. It's one of these crucial services that government plays a very important role in. And I've alluded to it a few times. We are wasting so much money in these other fringe areas over here that we don't have enough money for the important things. I mentioned it earlier with healthcare. We're not spending enough money on doctors and nurses and frontline staff, and I think the same applies here. We are currently spending $8 billion more on education than we were 10 years ago when the Liberals first took office, and yet we have 250,000 fewer students in the school system in the province of Ontario. And my kids are 9 and 7. They're in that school system. You would think if we were spending that much more money with all these fewer students that we would all be sitting around raving about how wonderful the education system is. And it's easy to put out a few statistics and say we're doing well. High school graduation rates are up. But overall, we got a world of problems. We're not doing as well as we think. There's room for improvement. There is so much room for improvement. And just like in healthcare, the improvement can come from focusing on the right things. We need to put the money into the maths, the sciences, the teachers, the right departments. Nobody's ever worried about my kids. We're worried about what about this community and what about the school board and what about the teachers. I just want quality one-on-one time for my 9-year-old and my 7-year-old, and right now we're not getting enough of it, and it's because we're wasting money in areas of education that are deemed part of education, but they're not necessary. We need to get the money directly to the teachers and into the right areas of the education sector.
Thank you. As I said in my opening, one of the things that we propose is that we go back to choice in education. All you have to do is look at the crazy amounts of money that are being thrown at education to try and make it work. Throwing money at education will not make it work. What will make it work is we have quality teachers, we have quality programs, we have parents who are able to go in and see what it is that their children are doing. I'll just digress here, I have a daughter-in-law in Windsor who's on a school board, And one of the things that drives her crazy and everyone else are these silly testing things that they do, where they take them and they make them learn specific answers to specific questions which have absolutely nothing to do with the curriculum to find out how well the school is doing. How be we go back to the way it was? We teach them, and at the end of a semester or whatever, they have tests, they have exams. They'll pass, they'll fail. That might sound like it's unfair, but you know what? Life is unfair, and the sooner that is learned, the better that they are going to be in the end. But money is not the answer. It is quality education and quality teachers. That's the answer.
I respect the question and the questioner, who I think actually asked, how do we increase math scores? I don't know. Does anyone know? This has been a question that's been debated for 40 years, and it goes gender bias one way or the other. However, if it is about money, remember what the Green Party said about our education system. Let's go to 1. Let's get rid of the duplicity and the waste. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I was elected as a school board trustee in 2000 under the Mike Harris government at the time, and the funding formula that was in place at that time, despite the Liberal government's commitment to review it when they took office in 2003, is basically the same. There's been some tweaks, some bigger tweaks than others, but basically the funding formula has been the same since 2000. The NDP is committing to a full review of the funding formula. We need to look at the need for specialist teachers. We need to look at the need for other school support professionals to ensure that children are learning to the best of their ability, and that our teachers are supported with the kind of resources that they need to be effective teachers. The NDP has also committed to introduce a student achievement program which would involve hiring 1,000 educational assistants across the province. Inclusion is a very important fundamental value for public education, but what that means is that our classrooms today have children with a wide range of learning skills and learning abilities, and it's very challenging for teachers to be able to teach such a broad range of students without having other professionals in the classroom to support them. And that's why we think that these educational assistants will really help further the student achievement agenda. And finally, FDK, full day kindergarten, is showing remarkable promise in terms of children's long-term learning abilities. And we're excited about the program, committed to the program, want to improve the program, but we think this is really the way to go.
I just need to check in with some of the organizers. We still have a half a box of questions over here. So if we want to get to specific ones, I might have to change gears. Mr. Bennett? Okay. I'll take a look at them during the next round. So the next question is this, and I think it's something that we're all interested in. What will you do about ER wait times in London? And I'm going to start with Jeff, followed by Nick, Keith, Al, and Peggy.
All right. I already touched on this earlier. I've been down to the ER. I've sat in line for 10 hours. It's a problem. I've spent way too much time in hospital in the last couple of years, and I think it all boils down to hiring more doctors and nurses and frontline staff. It's not just doctors and nurses, but physios, x-ray technicians, the people who are actually doing the work, the people that you and I go down to the hospital to see. But instead, what's been created over the last number of years is the LINs and all of these other extra layers of bureaucracy, and it's always masqueraded as, we're putting money into healthcare, and this is going to improve your life, and it's going to be wonderful, and when you get to the hospital, there's going to be somebody there who can point you in the right direction. And it's like I said earlier, I don't want you to point me to the line, I want you to make the line shorter. I don't want you to take a satisfaction survey and report back with some 20-page report about the state of healthcare in Ontario today. The money that we're putting into those things and into all of the bureaucracy that exists. And people keep on getting on me about the 100,000 job cuts. But 70,000 of those are people who are slated to retire over the next 4 years, regardless. And a lot of them are people that do work in healthcare. And I personally know 2 upper managers here in the city working in healthcare that manage 2 people. That's the insanity. Why we have somebody who manages 2 people, and it's not a doctor or a nurse or somebody who's going to help me on the front lines. Take money away from the excess and the waste that's been created over the last 10 years, direct it to the front lines. That's how we'll get the wait times down and improve all of our experiences in the hospital. Hopefully we don't have to go very often. But.
So wait times obviously have been a priority for our government. As I said, we were the first government in Ontario to measure wait times. Obviously, that's a good first step in trying to figure out how to reduce them. We've cut wait times drastically over the last 10 years, and we're looking at a couple of very exciting things to help continue that work. One is allowing nurses to write prescriptions for things except for narcotics. My mother-in-law is a nurse, and one of the biggest frustrations that she's expressed to me is that she'll know the problem. She's been a nurse for 30 years. She doesn't need to ask a doctor what the issue is when it's something simple. So she knows the issue, she knows how to treat it, and yet she has to wait for a doctor to come in and see the patient, make the exact same assessment. Let's allow nurses to do what they do. Let's respect them for the professionals that they are, and allow them to help us clear up the wait times, as well as reduce the cost of providing healthcare. Thanks very much.
Core of the Green Party philosophy is that local decisions should be made locally by the people who they affect. OHIP is a health service delivery strangler. The way it ensures that we get enough money spent on a very broad spectrum is by cutting off the number of people that can get an MRI this Saturday. That's centralization. Let's decentralize this decision-making process. The Green Party also says we'll have a goal of getting 90% of all of our citizens into a zero wait time mode in the next 10 years. And we'll do that by supporting nurse practitioner-led healthcare clinics, multidisciplinary healthcare teams. Presently, this is the way most of us go to the doctor anyway. Let's just increase that.
As I said in the opening, listen carefully to what you're going to be hearing. Because what you're going to be hearing is, we're already in a hole, and everyone else wants to keep digging. They all want to keep throwing more stuff at it. Right now, healthcare alone is almost 50% of all the taxes collected in Ontario. In 10 years from now, they project it to be 60 to 65%. Do you honestly think we can go on that way, leaving it the way it is? That's impossible. Healthcare alone will break us. It's that simple. We have to do more. We simply can't throw more at it because eventually we are going to run out of other people's money. We have to take it back to the position it was before 1969, where people had choice. Those who wanted to be on a health care plan with the government could do that. And those who wanted to have private insurance and private coverage, they could do that way. That is where the cost cutting will come from: competition. You don't go out and cut. You bring in competition. And once you bring in competition, all these people they're talking about, well, you're going to cut their jobs. No. There will be jobs opened up for them in the private sector as opposed to in the public sector. That's what we have to do. We cannot afford to go on this road anymore.
One of the pressures that is contributing to the increase in wait times in emergency rooms is that people don't have access to primary care providers, so they end up using the emergency room as a primary care vehicle. And so the NDP has committed to bringing in 50 new family health clinics across the province. And we believe that these clinics, run by interprofessional teams, will do a lot to address the burden on the emergency room system. The other thing that we have proposed is bringing in 250 nurse practitioners also across the province to do that initial triage and assessment in the emergency room. And this is a model that has been used at St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto, which gets a lot of emergency patients, and it has shown to have reduced emergency wait times at that hospital by 50%. So we think the family health teams, the nurse practitioners in the ERs would really do a lot. But the other thing that we are committed to is really investing in the home care system. I've heard from too many seniors who are released from hospital too early, and they don't have the sufficient supports at home. They go into crisis and they end up back in the ER, and this is a big problem. We need to make sure that we are focusing our investments on frontline care, on home care, on personal support workers to provide people with the supports they need at home so they don't get back into the emergency room. And we want to do that by capping CEO salaries. You know, there is a lot of bureaucracy in the healthcare system, and healthcare CEOs are earning very, very high and frankly unjustifiable salaries.
Thank you, candidates. I reviewed the questions, and most of the questions that were headed towards Mr. Bennett were dealing with the 100,000 jobs. What we're going to do is I'm going to have a little bit of a deviation here. I'm going to ask a clarifying question. You'll have 60 seconds to answer it. Then I'm going to come over to Nick. There was one question in here that hasn't been touched on. I'm going to ask you. You're going to have a 60-second answer. And then we're going to go back to the all-candidate format, so all candidates get to answer. And what's our 10 more minutes or so? Okay. So the question, Jeff, I think pertains to the 100,000 jobs, but it says, I heard a PC candidate say that many of the 100,000 jobs canceled would be for maternity leave. How can this be, since those jobs are guaranteed to be there when they return from such leave? You've got 60 seconds.
I hadn't heard that, but the biggest pushback I get at the doors is definitely around the 100,000 jobs. And it's unfortunate because it wasn't meant to be the big issue. We need to find savings somewhere, but I keep telling people it's a huge issue. We're trying to create jobs, but of the 100,000, 70,000 of those are people who are slated to retire over the next 4 years. Smokey, the union head here in the province, has even gone on record himself and said he believes that there's 60,000 public sector jobs out there that probably aren't quite as needed as when they were instituted. The union heads themselves feel that there's room for efficiencies. And that's the bottom line. The media has made it sound like we're going down to the local elementary school or the local hospital with a pile of pink slips. And nothing could be further from the truth. We need to find efficiencies. This is going to come via attrition, retirement, and the excess that's been brought in over the last 10 years.
Thank you. Nick, to you, the Liberal candidate, long-term care facilities are receiving more funds, but we need many more worker bees, not queens. We need PSWs, RPNs, sometimes only have 3 for 30 people. Want to comment on that? 2 seconds.
You can find the clip online. So as far as PSWs are concerned, absolutely. That's something I'm incredibly passionate about. My fiance is actually a child and youth worker, so I'm familiar with how hard people on the very front lines work and how little their reward can be. So one of the things that we've put forward is an actual increase in PSW's wages, not just, a blanket statement, more money for them, actually putting more monies in PSW's pockets so that they can do their job and not worry about having to feed their families at the end of the day on a limited budget. Thanks very much.
This round, the question is pertaining to CAS, Children Aid Societies. What will you do to change the funding formula for CAS agencies? Kids are being put at risk. And the first speaker to that will be Nick as well, followed by Al, Peggy, Keith, and Jeff.
Okay, as I said, my fiance is a child and youth worker, so this is something that obviously is fairly sensitive for us as well. I think the biggest thing that we have to do is find ways to create better partnerships with the agencies that are already doing the work for the kids, with the group homes, with the social service agencies who work with these kids on a day-to-day basis, and matching that up with CAS to avoid duplicating service. Amalgamating services is another way that we can do that. Watch and CMHA just went through an amalgamation process that'll save on administrative costs. So systems like that, looking at partnerships like that and being a little bit creative will allow us to spread our dollars further when it comes to caring for kids.
Allow me to give you an example of something other than CAS to make the point. I have a neighbor that worked at CPRI. He's now retired. And he basically told us that initially at CPRI, there were approximately 261 patients there at any given time in the beginning. Currently, there are 21 patients there at any given time. And yet, if you go past CPRI, you will see a fleet of cars for the managers. A fleet of cars there. The problem with a lot of this, again, we go back to the same issue. The front-line workers are being left in the dark, and the people who are, I think somebody referred to them as queen bees in the last question, and we need more worker bees. That indeed is what the problem is. We need more of those worker bees. We need more trained people to be there. And we need fewer people at the top sitting at the desk telling people what to do. We need more people who know exactly how to handle the children. Thank you.
This is an issue that has directly affected families and children here in London Middlesex. The London Middlesex CAS was affected by a change in the provincial funding formula, which did not recognize the extent of the programs that are provided by our CAS. And that meant that programs to support parents with anger management or dealing with teenagers or, these kinds of really critical programs had to be cut. We think that it's unconscionable that the funding formula would be changed and end up disadvantaging families and kids in this community. And we pushed for mitigation funding to be put in place so that the CASs that were affected by the change in the funding formula were able to adjust to the new funding process. But kids were hurt in London because of the loss of very important programs that were provided by the CAS that the CAS was no longer able to deliver as a result of the changes to the funding.
This is one of those things, I don't know the answer, and I'm not trying to be cute. I haven't studied this, I don't understand it, but I like what you said, Peggy.
I'll keep with the theme and say that I liked some of what Al said. I like that he mentioned CPRI. I was out knocking on doors yesterday with a social worker who happened to work at CPRI, and she was conveying a similar message to me, and she told me that they actually had to construct a new building out there to house all of the managers. And this goes back to the 100,000 job cuts that we were asked about earlier. There's room out there. And if we're worried about the kids, the money should be going directly to the kids. But over the last 10 years, with this Liberal government and the NDP supporting them 97% of the time, we keep on ending up with extra levels of bureaucracy, more management, more areas over here, when the money should be going directly to the kids. And that's not what's happening right now. We are wasting money. And I said it in the beginning, and the same applies here. There are all these areas where government is crucial and important, and we need to help people. and we don't have the money for it because we are wasting it in so many other areas. There's way too many managers in the healthcare field. There's way too many managers in children's services, and the money should be going directly to the children. We need to get that to the front lines and re-examine the way that we're doing things.
Okay, folks, we've been going for an hour and 40 minutes. Needless to say, there's a box of questions here. I suspect as you've listened to the candidates speak, you have more questions than when you started this evening, and that's probably a good thing. So we are going to wrap it up at this time. I want to do a couple things. First of all, I want to thank the organizers and the timekeeper. Good job on that. Appreciate it. I probably halfway through would have had one of those moments and someone would have carried on for about 10 minutes. Very well done. Advanced polls are open and opening very soon here. So the most important part of democracy, I think there's two elements. And actually one of them is here. First of all, be informed, and second of all, vote. And I noticed that the average age is 35 tonight. Drag your children to the polls. They don't eat unless they vote. That's the rule in our house. Finally, the candidates have brought brochures and will be by their tables in the hallway there. Take a few moments, greet them, chat with them, ask them the question that didn't get asked or the one that you always wish you had asked, that sort of thing. But finally, most of all, let's give a round of applause to the 5 candidates.